This is Irish Illustrated Instant Analysis, brought to you by the RV Manufactured Housing Hall of Fame in Elkhart, Indiana. I'm Tim O'Malley with Tim Prister of Irish Illustrated, John Brice of the FootballScoop and Irish Illustrated, and today we talked to Marcus Freeman after not a signature win, but one of his more complete wins of the season, certainly along with the Purdue game a few months back, and he mentioned perfection was not attained. They got pretty darn close. Defensively, obviously a little bit of push we've talked about against the defensive line. Freeman even brought that up, I found interesting, and also trying to become more balanced offensively, but they looked very good, and I want to start with you, JB, because confidence is obvious, but protecting against complacency was one of the final questions he handled.
It was, and they did it. And we've talked last week, we talked leading into the game, and the maturity of this team is so much better. It's so much more on display. I think there's really good leadership. I know from talking with people in the program, they're very pleased with the in-season leadership and the ownership. And I think, obviously, you have a number of guys leading that on the defensive side of the ball, X. Watts and Howard Cross, and especially Riley Mills as well. Offensively, Riley Leonard is a leader, and he's more of a genuine leader that I think has a lot of those attributes come fairly naturally for him, and those have rubbed off on his teammates over the course of the season as Notre Dame's offense has taken the time to evolve and improve.
One of the leaders of Notre Dame's defense, Tim Prister's Howard Cross, not unexpected. He will be out this week with an ankle sprain. It was bad enough that they took him off the depth chart, so he might be out for a couple weeks with an ankle sprain, obviously. Donovan Hinish steps in. I thought Donovan Hinish played well against the pass, as you noted. He does have a tendency to get sometimes washed out against the run. You see Armel Mukum and Sean Sevillano, a guy you've been high on, did join the depth chart this week.
Yeah, but Gabe Rubio, I think, is the guy that really has to step forward. He has to get reps at the nose tackle position. Having rewatched the game, wrote the tail of the tape, I was really impressed with Gabe Rubio. Very athletic. Listed as the same size as Mills. Obviously, Mills was outstanding, but plays longer than Mills does, maybe partly because of the physiques, the comparative physiques. But I thought he played really well. It was a beautiful pass broken up.
Yeah, athletic.
You really see the athleticism shine. And when you brought up Donovan Hinish to me when I joined overtime the other night, I didn't really give him his due. He did have a couple sacks. He had a tackle in the first series, and he is very, very active. He's just not very big, and it's hard to hold the point of attack. But I think Gabe Rubio is the guy that really moves to the forefront here in the absence of Howard Cross.
Rubio coming back from injury, and really back from injury now. I think we talked about this on overtime, on instant analysis, and Pete Sampson brought up today. Mitchell Evans. It was the best non-catch of the year, because that looked like Mitchell Evans of Ohio State and Duke. It just didn't count.
That was the guy that nearly led Notre Dame to that signature win last year against Ohio State. The guy that was on the best player on the field, on a field full of pros last year inside Notre Dame Stadium. The guy that took over the Duke game, and it was nice to hear Marcus Freeman let us know obliquely that we were absolutely right. We all thought it was Mitchell Evans' best game of the year, the Mitchell Evans of old. Marcus Freeman today saying emphatically that was absolutely vintage Mitch Evans, the best that he has been. That's encouraging. We've talked for weeks, if not months on end. You want these guys to be hitting a stride going into the stretch run of the season. We're officially in the stretch run of the season. Notre Dame continues to be in a great position for a stretch run that's going to include a college football playoff berth as well. This is the time.
Quickly, Tim Prister, because we talked about an Irish offensive player, an Irish defensive player. What about an Irish special teams player? Chris Tyree coming back for another senior day at Notre Dame. Marcus Freeman mentioned that signals are not a problem. They have a new offensive coordinator, all new signals, all new everything there. But they will have to count for Chris Tyree a little bit. It's a unique situation, and you just forget there's so many. It's going to happen every year now. Someone's going to be coming back for a game against Notre Dame that was a prime Notre Dame player.
He's still returning kicks for them. He wasn't returning punts last week, but he had been earlier in the year. He really is in a bit role. He's carried the ball a little bit.
Special teams is where he can make his impact.
No doubt about it. He's carried it a little bit. He's caught a few, but Malachi Fields is the guy. And Marcus Freeman brought it up. This is a Virginia team. They've led in every game, which is no small feat when you're 5-4. I guess they are now. They played poorly against Clemson and North Carolina, but they played extremely well last week on the road against Pittsburgh. Holstein was out at quarterback for Pittsburgh, so that certainly helped them. But I think this is a team, you look at their defense, they have players that can play, that can make plays. Sanker on the back end of their defense is very good. I look at this team as Notre Dame could win. What's the spread?
21.5.
20.
Yeah.
Notre Dame could win by 28. It also could be a 10-point game if Virginia comes in and plays well and Notre Dame misses their mark. Now, Notre Dame has not been missing their mark
Senior
in
day
recent weeks.
or on senior days.
Senior day can happen, but Marcus Freeman has had them dialed in. So we'll see. We'll see what reality is this Saturday.
I want to bounce to both of you guys on this one because Tim Priester actually asked the question the word was used piggybacked about 27 times thereafter by reporters. Priester asked about the bench being emptied. I mean, someone called it garbage time. Someone called it getting reps.
I didn't call it garbage.
No, you did not. I cringed on that one, but reps for a lot of players, a lot of reserves. They're starting to plan things now. 3 games, 4 games. I noticed Teddy Rizak is at 3 games. They're preserving him for a 4th game, so they really like him as a special team starter. I believe it's on punt return and kickoff coverage. The benefit of getting all those guys in is what was your benefit in this question.
TP opened the door, and I tried to run on through, following behind him.
24 questions in between about the same things.
Exactly. But we did want to ask because I think the notion of running up the score is a trash notion, and I don't think anybody who's watched Marcus Freeman operate, or anybody, or Al Golden or Mike Denbrock as the 3 chiefs of Notre Dame football, those guys are all class. So I'm tired of that narrative, but I'm glad we got to ask some questions about it to dispel it. What I wanted to know was those late game reps, especially against the Florida State. What does that do for guys going into spring camp? And Marcus Freeman emphasized it's very much a big deal to think we would get to play those guys, those reps against Florida State. And he admitted, I would have never expected that going into the season, that we might have the volume of guys playing that volume of reps against the Florida State late in the year. I would expect what it does for those players from a confidence standpoint, from a physical preparedness standpoint, gives a lot of guys a chance for spring to be a springboard.
Separate from your answer coming up, Tim, I just realized Al Golden better not be involved in letting up a little bit, because you can't just start giving up touchdowns for the heck of it on defense, but the other 2 guys can run up the score a little bit.
Now, they're Notre Dame now number 1 in the country in defensive pass percentage. They are just
not a surprise, honestly.
No, it's not. They're just so stout. They did get beat up a little bit in the middle of their defensive line and in the middle of their offensive line, quite frankly. You talked about the efficient runs by Florida State last week, but we're getting nitpicky. It's a great defense, and when it comes to defending the pass against especially against a team like Florida State with some young quarterbacks and a bad offensive line, it's going to be all you can eat for Notre Dame's defense.
We have a podcast coming up. For Tim Priester of Irish Illustrated, John Brice of the Football Scoop, this has been Irish Illustrated Instant Analysis, brought to you by the RV Manufactured Housing Hall of Fame. Visit Elkhart.